Welcome to the end of day review for Wednesday, the 13th of March 2024. Starting off with the economic calendar, we had a couple of red-folded news events. The first being GBP claimant count change, which was positive and supported longs for the London session. We then had core CPI and CPI related USD news, which then essentially meant that any open trades at the time of the London lull had to be closed, and also it meant that trading during this time wasn't valid and we needed to wait for the news release to then fade the news release. The news release was positive for the USD and only supported shorting of the GBPUSD pair. Having said all of that, let's move on to the chart and unpack what had happened for today and whether we could get into an entry. From a daily perspective, essentially Monday neutralized our daily bias after 6 consecutive bullish candles, and thus we had a neutral stance from a daily bias perspective. From a 4-hour perspective, we understand that there was a change of market structure recently, and as a result of that we're operating under uncertain scenario circumstances. Coming to the morning, we essentially reacted to this 4-hour OB and we're moving to the upside. However, we couldn't really we couldn't really do too much until we saw what the GBP news release was, and as you can see, it was in support of trading long. However, that didn't materialize. We then moved lower until we reached this demand OBs, at which point trading long was somewhat invalidated because we didn't really have support for trading longs from a news perspective. Once we reached this OB, we were already pretty much deep into the New York session, and the New York session news was all positive, supporting further shorts. From an unconfirmed scenario perspective, if you recall, I mentioned that we need 3 elements for any trade idea. We need void OB backing, a validated substructure level to target, as well as internal range liquidity on the 5-minute. So if we take a peek on the 5-minute chart quickly, what we can see is coming into the Frankfurt session right here, we had positive GBP news. However, even though the news was positive, price moved to the downside, at which point it body broke this 4H OB and we were unable to base any long ideas based on this OB. The next OB was this window of imbalance, which you can identify from this area to the left, but again that was 4H candle body broken and thus didn't give us the necessary support we required for longs. At this point we were nearing close to the London lull and thus any trade ideas were invalidated. We then came into the New York session, and again we were primarily focusing on longs because there wasn't any 4H OBs where price was reacting to support shorting, and for that reason it essentially meant that we couldn't trade shorts based on the positive CPI news for the USD, and in addition to that we couldn't trade longs because the CPI news release was against that idea. So all in all, quite a tough day to navigate in terms of PA. The uncertain scenario is not ideal and requires a lot of brain power to actually unpack the scenario. Having said all of that, that's pretty much the end of day review. I hope you traded safely and we'll chat again for the London outlook.